Florence, a city steeped in secrets and shadowed ambition, once hosted parties that would make modern revelers gasp. For centuries, the Medici family reigned, not just through banks and cunning, but with spectacles that blinded the world with their brilliance. Imagine a night so dazzling, so utterly extravagant, it burned itself into the very memory of Europe. Forget what you think you know about old money. The Medici threw bashes that were not just parties, they were pure, unadulterated power moves, cloaked in silk and secrets. Number 1. The Grand Tournament of Love and Virtue. The air on that late autumn evening, a crisp coolness clinging to the ancient stones of Florence, hinted at a transformation. It was the year 1616, and Grand Duke Cosimo II de' Medici, alongside his Grand Duchess Maria Maddalena of Austria, prepared to host an event of unprecedented scale, an immersive allegorical journey called the Grand Tournament of Love and Virtue. This was not merely a ball, it was an unfolding drama, a series of connected spectacles culminating in a masquerade that defied all previous definitions of grandeur. The setting began not within the familiar confines of the Pitti Palace, but in the sprawling Boboli Gardens, specifically within the amphitheater carved into its slopes, before moving indoors for the ball itself. The theme, a complex web of classical mythology and Christian allegory, depicted a struggle between the forces of love and virtue, with Florence, represented by the Medici, as the ultimate arbiter. Guests received elaborate invitations weeks prior, not just on parchment, but often accompanied by a small, intricately carved wooden mask, hinting at the evening's disguise. These masks, some painted with serene classical faces, others with the mischievous grins of satyrs, were themselves works of art, foreshadowing the visual feast to come. As dusk began to settle, the Boboli Gardens, usually a tranquil haven of sculpted hedges and classical statues, pulsed with a hushed excitement. Thousands of torches, strategically placed, cast dancing shadows that brought the ancient trees and fountains to life. The first part of the evening was the tournament, an elaborate display of horsemanship and theatricality that functioned as a living tableau. 4 chariots, each representing a virtue, chastity, fortitude, justice, and temperance, were drawn by magnificently caparisoned horses. The horses themselves wore feathered plumes and silken capes embroidered with the Medici lily, their hooves clattering rhythmically on the specially prepared ground. Each chariot was an architectural marvel, constructed from gilded wood, adorned with allegorical figures, and seemingly pulled by invisible forces. The chariot of chastity, for instance, was covered in pure white silk, its sides decorated with silver doves, and its driver, a young nobleman, was clad in armor polished to a mirror sheen, his mask a stoic, unblemished face. The participants, chosen from the highest ranks of Florentine nobility and visiting European courts, entered the amphitheater to the sound of trumpets and drums, their costumes for the tournament part of the spectacle. Knights wore fantastic armor, not for battle, but for display, etched with mythological scenes and encrusted with gemstones that caught the flickering light. Their helms were often shaped like mythical beasts or crowned with enormous, vibrant plumes of ostrich feathers. Ladies of the court, observing from specially constructed viewing platforms draped in crimson velvet, wore gowns of silk and velvet, their hair adorned with pearls and jewels that shimmered. Following the tournament, which involved symbolic jousting and intricate cavalry formations, rather than actual combat, the guests were led through a path lit by hundreds of lanterns, each one a miniature work of art, designed to mimic ancient Roman oil lamps. This procession led them to the grand halls of the Pitti Palace, now transformed into a different kind of world. The transition from the outdoor drama to the indoor masquerade was seamless, an intentional design to immerse the guests completely in the unfolding allegory. The grand hall of the Pitti Palace, usually a space of solemn courtly affairs, had been utterly transmuted. Walls were draped in rich tapestries, depicting scenes from Ovid's Metamorphoses, and the ceiling, already a masterpiece of fresco, seemed to glow with an ethereal light projected from hidden sources. Thousands of candles in massive silver chandeliers illuminated the space, their flames reflecting off the polished marble floors and the countless jewels worn by the guests. The air, though not thick with perfume, carried the delicate scent of imported citrus blossoms and rare incense, an intentional atmospheric touch. The masquerade costumes were of unparalleled extravagance. While many guests had arrived in their tournament attire, they now donned their true masquerade costumes, often changing into a completely different persona. Noblemen appeared as figures from Greek and Roman mythology: Jupiter with a golden lightning bolt, Hercules with a lion's pelt draped over his shoulders, Neptune with a trident crafted from gleaming silver. Their masks were elaborate, sometimes covering the entire face, crafted from papier-mâché, velvet, and silk, adorned with embroidery, jewels, and feathers. One notable costume, recalled in later accounts, was that of a participant disguised as a satyr, his entire body painted with green and brown hues, his mask a grotesque but artful representation of a horned creature, complete with flowing synthetic hair mimicking a shaggy pelt. The ladies' costumes were equally stunning. They chose to embody goddesses like Diana, with bows and quivers, or Venus, draped in shimmering pink silks, or even allegorical figures such as Justice with blindfolds and scales. One particularly memorable costume was that of a young duchess who appeared as a celestial nymph, her gown woven with silver thread that seemed to catch and refract every glimmer of light, creating a starry effect. Her mask was a delicate, almost transparent lace creation adorned with tiny, polished pearls, allowing her eyes to sparkle through like distant stars. The masks themselves were a symphony of materials: intricately carved ivory, Venetian glass, painted leather, and feathers from exotic birds, each a testament to the skill of Florence's artisans. Some masks were full face, others half masks, allowing for a tantalizing reveal. The entertainment was continuous and multifaceted. Orchestras composed of lutes, harps, viols, and early wind instruments like flutes and hautboys played newly composed music throughout the night, often switching styles to match the evolving mood. Court dancers dressed as nymphs, shepherds, and muses performed intricate ballets that told stories of heroic deeds and romantic pursuits. These performances were not confined to a stage, but moved through the space, interacting with the masked guests, blurring the line between spectator and participant. Acrobats disguised as mischievous sprites tumbled and leaped from suspended platforms, adding an element of playful wonder. The banquet was laid out in a separate hall, a veritable landscape of culinary artistry. The tables stretched the length of the room, laden with an astonishing array of dishes. Whole roasted boars garnished with gilded leaves were served alongside swans, their white feathers meticulously reattached for display. There were towering sugar sculptures depicting mythological scenes, including a perfectly rendered Mount Parnassus with tiny sugar muses. Exotic fruits, rarely seen in Europe, such as pineapples and citrus from distant lands, were arranged in elaborate pyramids. Wines flowed freely from massive silver ewers, including rare vintages from the Medici vineyards and imported French clarets. Spiced hippocras, a sweetened wine, was served in exquisite Venetian glass goblets, each one a delicate masterpiece. Servants, dressed in the livery of the Medici household, moved silently through the hall, offering delicacies and replenishing glasses, their own simple masks ensuring anonymity. As the night progressed, the Grand Duke and Grand Duchess, after a dramatic unmasking ceremony where their identities were revealed to a chorus of applause, joined in the revelry. They mingled among their guests, engaging in witty banter and elegant dances. The Grand Duke, whose costume was a majestic representation of Apollo, complete with a golden lyre, and the Grand Duchess, a serene depiction of Minerva, her mask a masterpiece of gilded bronze, moved with regal grace. The revelry continued until the early hours of the morning, with guests engaging in courtly dances like the galliard and pavane, their masked identities adding an element of playful mystery to each turn. The sheer scale of the event, the seamless blend of outdoor spectacle and indoor opulence, and the meticulous attention to every thematic detail, marked the grand tournament of love and virtue as an unforgettable testament to the Medici's unwavering commitment to grand display. Accounts from the time describe the guests leaving the palace as dawn broke, their minds still reeling from the visual and sensory onslaught, many carrying their intricate masks as treasured keepsakes, a tangible memory of a night unlike any other. Number 2, the Feast of Neptune's Court. The year was 1600, a milestone year marking the marriage of Maria de' Medici, daughter of Francesco I de' Medici, to King Henry IV of France. Grand Duke Ferdinando I de' Medici, Maria's uncle and now head of the family, orchestrated a series of celebrations for this grand alliance, designed not just to entertain but to proclaim the enduring power and wealth of the Medici dynasty. Among these festivities, the Feast of Neptune's Court stood out as a masquerade of unparalleled aquatic grandeur, a spectacle deeply intertwined with the theme of Florence's dominion and its connection to the sea through its port at Livorno. The primary location for this monumental event was not solely within the Pitti Palace, but extended dramatically to the Arno River itself, transforming it into a theatrical stage before retreating indoors. The theme was an elaborate homage to the sea god Neptune and his court, celebrating the prosperity and influence that maritime trade brought to Florence under Medici rule. Invitations arriving on vellum, decorated with images of tritons and mermaids, were sent to all the major courts of Europe, drawing an international assembly of nobles, ambassadors, and dignitaries eager to witness Florentine opulence. As evening approached, the banks of the Arno, usually bustling with everyday life, were lined with thousands of lanterns and flambeaux, casting a golden glow on the water. Specially constructed pontoons draped in silk and velvet served as viewing platforms for the most esteemed guests. The first act of the masquerade unfolded on the river itself. A flotilla of elaborately decorated barges disguised as sea monsters and mythical vessels glided slowly down the Arno. One barge representing Neptune's chariot was a massive gilded shell drawn by enormous sculpted horses that seemed to gallop on the water. It was populated by figures disguised as Neptune himself, a nobleman with a flowing beard and trident, surrounded by his retinue of Nereids and Tritons. The Nereids, played by young noblewomen, wore gowns of shimmering green and blue silk, adorned with real seashells and pearls, their masks sculpted to resemble the serene faces of sea nymphs. The Tritons, young men from noble families, were adorned with seaweed-like garlands and carried conch shells, which they occasionally blew to produce deep, resonant sounds that echoed across the water. Other barges carried musicians' lutes, harps, and various wind instruments, whose melodies seemed to float across the river, blending with the gentle lapping of the water against the boats. There were also smaller, individual boats, each carrying a single masked figure, some dressed as fantastical sea creatures, a giant squid, a luminescent jellyfish, their costumes crafted from painted silk and wire frames, illuminated from within by hidden lamps. This aquatic procession created a truly immersive and awe-inspiring spectacle, a moving tableau that slowly made its way towards the Ponte Santa Trinita, which had been temporarily transformed into a grand, arching stage. Once the procession concluded, the guests were led into the Palazzo Pitti, where the grand halls had been utterly transformed into an underwater palace. The walls were draped with rich blue and green fabrics, creating the illusion of deep ocean depths, shimmering with silver threads that mimicked sunlight filtering through water. The ceilings were adorned with elaborate hanging decorations of coral, pearls, and glass bubbles, suspended as if floating in the currents. Massive chandeliers, designed to resemble glowing jellyfish or phosphorescent sea anemones, cast a soft, ambient light throughout the space. The costumes for the indoor masquerade were a marvel of imagination and craftsmanship, all adhering to the aquatic theme. And guests appeared as every imaginable creature of the sea and figures from maritime mythology. Noblemen were disguised as robust sailors, their masks weathered and suntanned, or as powerful mermen, their lower halves crafted from iridescent scales that gleamed with every movement. Others chose to portray ancient sea gods, their masks adorned with elaborate crowns of seaweed and pearls, their garments flowing and layered to mimic ocean waves. One particular costume described in contemporary records was that of a nobleman disguised as a giant crab, his articulated shell made from painted leather and wood, his mask a grotesque but fascinating representation of the crustacean's face, with multiple eyes crafted from polished glass. The ladies' costumes were equally exquisite. Many chose to be graceful mermaids, their gowns ending in flowing tails of layered silk that shimmered with greens, blues, and purples. Their masks were often delicate, adorned with pearls, tiny seashells, and even real starfish meticulously attached. Others portrayed serene sea nymphs, their hair adorned with woven seaweed and tiny glass beads that mimicked water droplets. There was also a group of noblewomen disguised as pearl divers, their costumes featuring shimmering fabrics and nets adorned with hundreds of real pearls, their masks resembling stylized goggle-like apparatus. Each mask was a miniature artwork, ranging from serene faces adorned with marine elements to more abstract or fantastical representations of sea creatures, crafted from a variety of materials including papier-mâché, painted wood, and finely spun lace. The entertainment within the palace continued the aquatic theme. A specially commissioned opera, with characters drawn from the tales of Neptune and Amphitrite, was performed on a raised stage, complete with elaborate mechanical waves and fountains that gushed real water. Court dancers, dressed as schools of fish or graceful dolphins, performed intricate ballets across the polished floors, their movements mimicking the fluidity of underwater motion. The musicians, hidden within grottos fashioned from sculpted plaster and shellwork, played music that evoked the sounds of the ocean, the gentle lapping of waves, the calls of seabirds, and the majestic swell of the tides. The banquet was an absolute feast, a testament to Medici extravagance. Long tables were laden with silver platters piled high with seafood of every description: roasted fish, giant lobsters, platters of oysters and mussels. There were also more unusual dishes, such as whole roasted sharks, their mouths agape, filled with smaller, brightly colored fish. Sugar sculptures dominated the center of the tables, depicting grand galleons, coral reefs, and intricate scenes of Neptune's underwater kingdom, all crafted with astonishing detail. Exotic fruits, including rare citrus from Sicily and pomegranates from the Levant, were arranged in artistic displays. Wines, both local and imported, flowed freely from ornate silver decanters shaped like ancient amphorae. Servants, themselves dressed as minor sea spirits, with simple masks, moved among the guests, offering refreshments and attending to every need. The Feast of Neptune's court was more than just a masquerade. It was an ambitious fusion of theater, art, and culinary excess, all designed to reinforce the Medici's image as masters of not just Florence, but also the broader world, including the vast oceans. The intricate planning, the stunning transformations of both the city and the palace, and the sheer creativity of the costumes and entertainment ensured that this particular masquerade remained a talking point for years to come, a vivid memory of Florentine splendor during the zenith of the Medici era. The grandeur of the event, meticulously documented by various contemporary chroniclers, serves as a testament to the family's ability to turn any occasion into a dazzling display of power and artistic patronage. Number 3. The Masque of the Planets. In the year 1579, during the rule of Grand Duke Francesco I de' Medici, a different kind of masquerade unfolded within the mysterious confines of the Palazzo Vecchio, specifically within and around his famed studiolo and surrounding private chambers. This was the Masque of the Planets, an event that mirrored Francesco's deep fascination with alchemy, astrology, and the hidden mechanisms of the cosmos. Unlike the more public, outward-facing spectacles of other Medici rulers, this masquerade was an intimate, almost esoteric gathering reserved for Francesco's closest circle of intellectuals, artists, and trusted courtiers. The atmosphere was one of hushed wonder and intellectual curiosity, a night where the boundaries between science, art, and magic blurred. The theme was the celestial realm, with each guest encouraged to embody a planet, a constellation, or an astrological sign. Invitations were small, intricately designed scrolls sealed with wax impressions of planetary symbols, hand-delivered to a select few. They hinted at a night of cosmic revelation and arcane beauty. The setting began in the studiolo itself, a small private study filled with cabinets of curiosities, scientific instruments, and alchemical apparatus. This room, usually a personal sanctuary for Francesco's experiments, was dimly lit by flickering oil lamps and strategically placed crystal prisms that cast fractured rainbows across the walls, creating an otherworldly glow. The air was subtly scented with rare resins and exotic spices chosen to evoke ancient astrological chambers rather than a typical Florentine palace. This initial space served as a kind of antechamber, preparing the guests for the deeper mysteries to come. From the studiolo, a concealed door, usually hidden behind a bookcase, led to a series of transformed private rooms, each meticulously designed to represent a different celestial sphere or a planetary influence. One room, draped in deep indigo velvet and illuminated by a single, pulsing orb of light, represented the realm of the moon, associated with mystery and illusion. Another, ablaze with golden light and adorned with images of lions and sun symbols, was dedicated to the sun, representing power and radiance. Guests moved through these chambers, each transformation intensifying the otherworldly atmosphere. The costumes for the Masque of the Planets were less about flamboyant display and more about symbolic representation and intricate detail. Noblemen appeared as personifications of the planets, their garments meticulously crafted to reflect the astrological characteristics and colors associated with each celestial body. A participant disguised as Mars wore deep crimson and burnished bronze, his mask a stylized warrior's visage, strong and unyielding. Another, embodying Venus, was draped in soft greens and blues, her mask a serene, classical face adorned with delicate gold filigree. The Grand Duke Francesco himself, it was rumored, chose to represent Mercury, the elusive messenger god, his costume a shimmering silver, almost liquid in its appearance, his mask a masterpiece of intricate clockwork that seemed to shift and change subtly in the flickering light, symbolizing the planet's quickness and the alchemist's transformation. Ladies' costumes were equally subtle and symbolic. They chose to represent specific constellations, their gowns embroidered with hundreds of tiny shimmering beads that formed patterns of stars against deep velvet backgrounds. Some were disguised as muses of astronomy or ancient astrologers, their masks depicting wise, enigmatic faces. One particularly striking costume was of a woman disguised as Cassiopeia, her gown adorned with constellations crafted from tiny pearls and shimmering threads, her mask a delicate lattice of silver, allowing her eyes to appear as twin stars. The masks themselves were often crafted from fine leather or lightweight wood, painted with precision, some adorned with small, polished gems that mimicked distant stars, others with intricate patterns representing cosmic orbits. The goal was not immediate recognition, but the embodying of a universal force, adding to the evening's sense of cosmic mystery. The entertainment was designed to deepen the sense of cosmic wonder and intellectual stimulation. As musicians positioned in hidden alcoves played haunting, ethereal melodies on instruments like glass harmonicas, lutes, and harps, their sounds echoing softly through the transformed rooms. Rather than grand performances, there were smaller, intimate displays of mechanical marvels. Tiny, intricate automata, designed by Francesco's own court engineers, moved silently across polished tables, representing celestial bodies orbiting each other. There were also displays of magic lanterns, early forms of projection devices, casting moving images of comets and constellations onto draped walls, astonishing the select audience. One account mentions a particularly intricate device that simulated the movement of the planets around the sun, its brass gears whirring softly as tiny spheres revolved in silent, perfect harmony. The banquet, served in a more expansive but still intimate dining hall, continued the cosmic theme. Dishes were presented with artistic flair, some resembling celestial objects. Black puddings studded with white beans mimicked starry nights, while pastries were sculpted into crescent moons and suns. Exotic fruits, arranged to form constellations, lay next to rare cheeses. Wines were served in dark, opaque glass goblets, enhancing the sense of mystery. There were also specially concocted elixirs, non-alcoholic, but infused with rare spices, presented in vials resembling alchemical flasks, rumored to contain properties that enhance the senses. Servants, their faces obscured by simple dark masks, moved with silent efficiency, appearing almost as shadows against the dimly lit walls. The Masque of the Planets was a profoundly unique event, reflecting Francesco I's singular personality and his deep engagement with the scientific and occult knowledge of his time. It was a celebration of intellect and enigma, a gathering where the boundaries of art, science, and the unknown converged. The lack of grand public display made it all the more exclusive and intriguing, fostering an atmosphere of shared secrets and intellectual discovery among the privileged few who were invited. The memories of that night, whispered among the Florentine elite, spoke of a unique and unforgettable journey through the very fabric of the universe, orchestrated by the Grand Duke himself. It was a masquerade, not for outward show but for inward contemplation, a private voyage into the mysteries that captivated the mind of Francesco de' Medici. Number 4, the allegory of the Golden Age. The mid-16th century, specifically the year 1559, witnessed a shift in Medici power. Cosimo I de' Medici, having consolidated his rule and secured the title of Grand Duke of Tuscany, sought to demonstrate Florence's renewed stability and prosperity. The allegory of the Golden Age, a masquerade ball of immense scale, was orchestrated to celebrate this new era of peace and flourishing arts, a period Cosimo aimed to present as a return to an idealized, harmonious time. The setting was the Palazzo Pitti, recently acquired and undergoing vast renovations, its grand halls serving as a canvas for Cosimo's vision. The theme was a nostalgic invocation of the mythical Golden Age, a time of innocence, abundance, and artistic flourishing, directly linking Florence's current state under Cosimo's rule to this fabled past. Invitations meticulously hand-painted with bucolic scenes of nymphs, shepherds, and overflowing cornucopias were sent to European royalty and the most influential figures of the Italian peninsula. These invitations were often accompanied by a small golden leaf, a symbolic gesture to the mythical era. As guests arrived, they passed through a grand entrance designed to resemble a verdant grove, its walls adorned with sculpted foliage and artificial waterfalls that gently cascaded into illuminated pools, creating a soothing sound that contrasted with the rising murmur of anticipation. The air was filled with the scent of fresh-cut flowers imported from the Medici gardens. The transition from the outside world to the transformed palace was immediate and immersive, setting the tone for the journey back in time. The main hall of the Palazzo Pitti was transformed into an idyllic landscape, a pastoral dreamscape brought to life within stone walls. The colossal spaces were draped in emerald green and sky blue silks, creating the illusion of rolling hills and vast open skies. Artificial trees laden with fabricated golden fruits lined the perimeter of the hall, their branches intertwined with garlands of fresh flowers. The ceiling, already a masterpiece of fresco painting, was enhanced with additional projections of soft, shifting clouds, giving the impression of an endless, serene sky. Sculpted fountains, flowing with scented water, provided a constant, gentle background murmur. The costumes for the allegory of the Golden Age were a symphony of natural beauty and idealized classical form. Noblemen arrived disguised as wise philosophers, their robes flowing and unadorned, their masks bearing serene, classical faces, often with long, sculpted beards. Others chose to embody mythical shepherds, their tunics, woven from rough-spun linen but exquisitely embroidered with scenes of rural life, carrying shepherds' crooks adorned with ribbons and flowers. There were also participants disguised as fauns and satyrs, their masks crafted with mischievous grins and small sculpted horns, their bodies painted with earthy tones, draped in animal pelts. Cosimo I himself, it was whispered, appeared as Saturn, the Roman god associated with the Golden Age, his costume a rich, deep blue velvet adorned with silver stars and crescent moons, his mask a wise, benevolent face, subtly hinting at his regal presence. The ladies' costumes echoed the theme of pastoral innocence and classical grace. They appeared as nymphs, their gowns made of light, flowing fabrics like silk and gossamer, adorned with wreaths of flowers and pearls in their hair. Many wore gowns in soft pastel shades, rose pinks, sky blues, and gentle greens, each seemingly woven from the colors of a spring meadow. Others chose to embody goddesses of nature, such as Ceres or Flora, carrying baskets overflowing with fabricated golden grain or blossoms. One particularly beautiful costume described was that of a noblewoman disguised as a dryad, a tree nymph, her gown woven with green and brown threads that mimicked bark and leaves, her mask a serene face, adorned with tiny, delicate branches and blossoms, giving the impression of growing from the forest itself. The masks themselves were often simple, elegant classical faces, sometimes adorned with real flowers or leaves, designed to enhance the wearer's natural beauty while preserving the element of disguise. The entertainment was designed to evoke a sense of timeless harmony and intellectual amusement. Orchestras composed of lutes, harps, viols, and early woodwind instruments played gentle, melodious music, often ancient forms of madrigals and pastorals, creating a tranquil atmosphere. Court dancers, dressed as nymphs and shepherds, performed graceful ballets that depicted scenes of idyllic rural life, grape harvesting, lovers meeting by a stream, or a communal dance under a moonlit sky. Poets recited newly composed verses extolling the virtues of peace and the flourishing of arts under Cosimo's rule. There were also small interactive tableaux vivants where masked figures posed as classical statues, coming to life only to offer a symbolic gesture or a single, enigmatic word before returning to their motionless state. The banquet, served in a vast hall adjacent to the main ballroom, was an extravagant display of nature's bounty. Long tables were laden with silver platters, piled high with roasted game, fresh fish, and enormous cuts of prime beef, all garnished with fresh herbs and wildflowers. There were towering bread sculptures shaped like cornucopias, overflowing with fresh fruits and vegetables. Exotic fruits, many of them new to Florence, like pomegranates and figs, were arranged in artistic mounds. Wines flowed freely from large, ornate fountains, some even offering a choice of red or white, subtly scented with rose petals or citrus zest. Sculpted sugar figures depicted pastoral scenes, shepherds tending their flocks, nymphs bathing in streams, and allegorical figures representing abundance and peace. Servants, dressed in simple tunics adorned with floral wreaths, moved quietly among the guests, their presence discreet, their faces covered by plain, unadorned masks. The allegory of the Golden Age was a grand testament to Cosimo I's strategic use of spectacle. It was a clear message to Florence and to Europe that under Medici rule, the city had entered a new era of stability, prosperity, and cultural brilliance, akin to a return to a fabled, perfect past. The sheer scale of the transformation of the Pitti Palace, the intricate details of the costumes, and the immersive entertainment all contributed to an unforgettable night. Accounts from foreign ambassadors highlighted the seamless execution and the pervasive sense of a city reborn, a powerful image projected across the European courts, demonstrating Cosimo's ability to use art and revelry as powerful tools of statecraft. Number 5. The Triumph of Pallas Athena. The late 15th century, a time of profound cultural flourishing and political intrigue, saw Lorenzo de' Medici, known as the Magnificent, at the height of his power. In the year 1488, following a period of sustained peace and the successful navigation of complex alliances, Lorenzo orchestrated the triumph of Pallas Athena, a masquerade that celebrated Florence's intellectual prowess, its artistic spirit, and the wisdom he believed guided his city. This magnificent event took place primarily within the Grand Palazzo Medici Riccardi, transforming its familiar spaces into a living embodiment of classical ideals and allegorical wisdom. The theme was a direct homage to Pallas Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom, warfare, and the arts, a figure closely associated with Florence's self-perception as a beacon of intellectual and artistic light. Invitations penned in elegant calligraphy on vellum adorned with laurel wreaths and olive branches were dispatched across the Italian peninsula to leading humanists, renowned artists, and powerful noble families. Each invitation was a carefully crafted piece, often hinting at the mythological roles guests might play. As evening descended upon Florence, the Palazzo Medici, usually a symbol of quiet authority, began to pulse with a vibrant energy. The palace's iconic courtyard, with its familiar sculptures and architecture, was the first point of entry, transformed into an outdoor theater. Thousands of oil lamps and massive flambeaux strategically placed cast dynamic shadows that made the classical statues seem to move. The air, crisp and cool, carried the faint scent of cypress and burning incense. The first part of the evening involved a dramatic procession that wound its way through the courtyard before entering the main halls. This was a grand tableau, a living representation of Athena's triumphs. A massive, intricately crafted mechanical owl, Athena's sacred bird, was wheeled into the courtyard. Its eyes glowed with an internal light, its wings slowly flapped, and from its beak, a stream of white doves was released, each carrying a small, ribbon-tied scroll with a poetic verse praising wisdom. This mechanical marvel astonished the assembled guests, a testament to Florentine engineering and artistic innovation. Following the owl, a group of musicians disguised as ancient bards played on lyres, lutes, and early rebecks, their melodies both stately and joyful. From the courtyard, guests were led into the Grand Sala, or main hall, of the Palazzo Medici. The space had been entirely reimagined as a classical temple dedicated to Athena. Walls were draped in rich fabrics of deep blue and olive green, embroidered with golden threads that mimicked constellations and flowing classical patterns. Pillars were adorned with laurel wreaths and bronze shields, creating the illusion of an ancient sanctuary. The ceiling, already a masterpiece of painted wood, was illuminated from below by countless hidden lamps, giving the impression of an ethereal glow emanating from within. Large, sculpted, allegorical figures representing the liberal arts rhetoric, logic, music, astronomy, stood majestically on pedestals, each one a temporary masterpiece commissioned for the event. The costumes for the triumph of Pallas Athena were a magnificent display of Renaissance artistry and classical scholarship. Noblemen appeared as figures from Greek mythology, embodying heroes like Achilles, his mock armor crafted from polished steel and leather, adorned with intricate engravings, his mask a fierce, heroic visage. Others were disguised as powerful gods, such as Zeus, with a gilded thunderbolt, or Apollo, their garments made of rich velvets and brocades, shimmering with gold thread. Lorenzo de' Medici himself, it was said, chose to appear as Apollo, the god of music, poetry, and light, a subtle nod to his own celebrated poetic endeavors. His costume was a dazzling array of gold and crimson, his mask a masterpiece of enamel and filigree, depicting a serene, luminous face. His retinue, a procession of figures representing the muses and graces, moved with practiced grace, their silk garments rustling softly, their masks delicate and beautiful. The ladies' costumes were equally stunning, embodying goddesses, nymphs, and allegorical virtues. Many chose to appear as Vestal virgins, their white gowns flowing and adorned with delicate pearls that shimmered under the torchlight, their masks serene and unblemished. Others were disguised as dryads or nereids, their gowns woven with threads of silver and gold, adorned with fabricated leaves or seashells, their masks sculpted to capture a delicate beauty. One particularly intricate costume was of a young noblewoman disguised as a butterfly, her gown woven with iridescent threads, and enormous delicate wings crafted from painted silk and wire, her mask a fantastical shimmering insectoid face. Each mask was a tiny work of art, ranging from classic human faces to fantastical creatures, crafted from wood, plaster, or papier-mâché, painted with incredible detail and adorned with jewels, feathers, or intricate embroidery. The entertainment was a seamless blend of music, dance, and theatrical illusion. A specially commissioned festa music, incorporating elements of contemporary madrigals and traditional laud, was performed by multiple orchestras positioned in various alcoves, their instruments including lutes, harps, viols, and early wind instruments. And court dancers, dressed as muses and nymphs, performed intricate ballets that told stories of Athena's wisdom and triumphs, their movements precise and graceful. Acrobats, disguised as satyrs and mischievous woodland sprites, tumbled and leaped through the hall, adding an element of playful exuberance. A particularly remarkable illusion involved a simulated cloud that slowly descended from the ceiling, from which figures dressed as goddesses emerged, scattering rose petals and gold confetti over the astonished guests before slowly ascending once more. The banquet was an absolute feast, a true testament to Florentine culinary artistry and Medici wealth. Tables groaned under the weight of silver platters piled high with roasted peacocks, their feathers meticulously reattached for display, lying next to whole roasted boars garnished with gilded leaves. There were towering sugar sculptures depicting Mount Olympus, complete with tiny, intricately sculpted gods and goddesses, and other mythical scenes from classical lore. Exotic fruits, such as dates, pomegranates, and rare citrus from distant lands, were arranged in geometric patterns, their vibrant colors a feast for the eyes. And wines, both local and imported from France and Spain, flowed freely from large, ornate, silver ewers. Spiced hippocras, a popular sweetened wine, was served in delicate Venetian glass goblets, each one a miniature work of art. One particularly famous confection was a massive pastry shaped like a laurel wreath, filled with sweet cream and candied violets, a tribute to Lorenzo's poetic achievements. Servants, themselves dressed in simple tunics depicting satyrs or woodland creatures, moved with quiet efficiency, their faces painted with green and brown pigments rather than masks, blending into the mythological landscape. The triumph of Pallas Athena was more than just a party, it was a grand declaration, a living embodiment of Renaissance ideals. The meticulous planning, the artistic innovations, and the sheer scale of the transformation of the Palazzo Medici Riccardi marked it as one of the most memorable events of Lorenzo's reign. Accounts from attendees spoke of the dazzling costumes, the captivating music, and the pervasive sense of stepping into a mythical world. It was a night that underscored the Medici's unparalleled ability to fuse political ambition with artistic patronage, creating a legacy that would echo through the centuries.